Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first of the Founder podcast. In this podcast, we'll be joined by startup entrepreneurs, and delighted to have Matti Lannetta from Kletta as our first entrepreneur today. So, Matti, great to meet you, and great to have you on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us a little bit about Kletta.
Okay, and thanks, Andrew, for inviting me here. Happy to be here. So my name is Matti Lannetta. As said, I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Kletta. I'm actually a Finn, but very much love the UK and all the exciting things happening around making tax digital and related aspects over there. So yeah, I've been in the business world some 20 years now. Been working in a bit of in management consulting, then quite many years in the corporate banking world, then also in the fintech world, actually heading some business lines for German-based fintech unicorn, and now past few years been leading the growth journey of Kletta.
So yes, obviously moving from some of the sort of some giant corporates into Kletta, where you're solving a problem for solopreneurs, as we say in the UK, those sort of sole traders as one-person businesses. Bit of a departure, which leads me to my first question, really. What inspired you to start Kletta?
Well, that's a very good question, and I mean, what we recognized jointly with my business partner was that many of the accounting software, or actually most of the accounting software, have been initially designed for limited companies and to be used primarily through the desktop computer. At the same time, I mean, I was a self-employed, person, also doing a bit of business consulting and sales agent type of work, and recognized that, oh my God, many of these accounting software, they are just too cumbersome, too overwhelming for my needs. And let's say my business partner had the same, feeling, and he had been, for example, leading some, kind of SDR teams, and where a lot of people were self-employed, and the solutions available for them were, just too cumbersome.
It's interesting. This is a world I've been in for too long. I'm getting too old now, but it's interesting for me. Most of the solutions, exactly as you say, they're designed for limited companies, which is in the UK. I think about 1.5 million, 2 million of the 5.5 million businesses are limited companies. Most of them will be using something, I would imagine. Great, that's fine. You can kind of deal with the complexity there. You've set up a limited company. You appreciate there's going to be some admin, some bureaucracy. But the thing that always surprises me is the majority of businesses in the UK are sole traders. They are self-employed or self-employed, however you want to describe them, and they don't need the same complexity. And I think there's been a lot of focus. I think increasingly, usually in software, there's always a focus on solving a problem, but sometimes you can solve the more complex problem and leave the simple problem there. And this is where spreadsheets and manual records are still being used by millions and millions of people. So as we know, having been in this world, making tax digital come April is going to change that considerably, right? So it's not optional anymore. So obviously you've seen that frustration from your own lens when you were managing your own consultancy. And I think a lot, it's surprising actually how many software companies in this space have been started up because someone was feeling the pain themselves. So obviously you've seen the problem. You've got a great background in the corporate world. Talk me through those first few weeks after you decided, right, here's a problem, I can come up with a solution. Talk me through that kind of, moving it from here's an idea I think is a good idea to actually having a product and customers. Walk us through that process.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit like, evaluation. I mean, we started thinking like, okay, this is basically kind of the issue or the problem. And then furthermore, we started thinking that, okay, what should be the kind of foundations for the solution? I think few key points were like that we want that to be mobile first. So I mean, especially in the scope of sole traders, significant share of them don't use, desktop computers on a daily basis, whilst basically everybody nowadays have their smartphones with them wherever they go. And at the same time, people are using increasingly smartphones to deal with, like, basic banking needs, obviously for social media, what have you. So it's actually very kind of a familiar tool. So why not to enable to deal with kind of basic needs of the self-employed people also through mobile? And secondly, focusing on the, let's say, underserved needs of those sole traders. And there we also, let's say, a little bit turned around the thinking that whilst the incumbent accounting software, they were designed around, as said, all those limited companies, which actually leads that they are designed quite a lot around the traditional bookkeeping and accounting rules. And then we started thinking that, okay, in the world of sole traders, actually you can simplify quite a many workflows and also automate them. And whilst we started our journey, the generative AI and the language models were not really, like, there yet, and they have come on top of these, let's say, process automation things during the year and a half. Okay, I went a little bit further from the starting point, but this has been basically the journey. So yeah, it started actually truly thinking, what would be compelling offering for these self-employed people, and especially for the masses. And there we made a conscious decision to focus purely on sole traders, and going with the mobile first solution, truly putting a lot of emphasis on simplicity, easy onboarding, and making it so automated that the whole solution can be affordable and efficient.
I think that's it. The easy onboarding is a great point, and I think we'll come on to that in terms of the sole traders, because I think we've got this situation where I think conservatively there's at least 600,000 businesses that are going to have to start using recording records digitally, filing digitally from April next year. These are guys who probably haven't used anything that formal. They've kept receipts, put them in a bag, send them to the accountant, or not, or just filling a spreadsheet. I think there's obviously going to be particularly for accountants, there's going to be a huge drain on time managing those clients, because you're going to have to do the quarterly returns. The thing I think people are underestimating is just how much time it's going to take to set up these clients, because you have to get them set up on an app or on a solution. You've got to train them on that. I know you were quite heavily involved when you started Kletta with onboarding those first clients, and particularly in certain sectors. So talk us through that sort of that first wave of clients in that sector that you've got the sort of a really strong foothold in Scandinavia, because I think that's really interesting. That's a really important part of MTD, is the onboarding process.
Yeah, indeed. So, and I mean, going back a little bit, like in the history of Kletta, given that Scandinavia is our home turf, so that's a core market. The other core market for us has been and is going to be UK. And why so? I mean, we've recognized that the Making Tax Digital will have a very significant implications on how people deal with these matters. So, I mean, it's actually so that, let's say, digitalization of banking, payments, and bookkeeping related aspects, they are somewhat more, let's say, if not advanced, at least more digital in Scandinavia. And there are a few reasons. I mean, there's and one of them being that, for example, the VAT threshold in Finland, as it's in some other European countries, is 20,000 euros. So less than 20,000 sterling a month, which basically has pushed these people, for example, all those hairdressers, barbers, and other beauty professionals into the world of digital bookkeeping. And hence, actually, why I brought up this hair and beauty segment, because this is actually one of the strongholds of us in Scandinavia. So meaning that we are processing the books as well as the VAT returns for thousands of hair and beauty people who are typically not that digitally savvy, very human oriented. So I mean, what we recognize is that given that these people they are savvy on using solutions like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, so let's create the solutions for which basic fits their mindset, and there we have been very successful and planning to also leverage that as we continue growing also in the UK market.
So that's really interesting. So two things there. I think the fact that Scandinavia and Finland is sort of ahead of the UK in terms of digitalization is something that I think we're quite aware of. The VAT threshold, there's talk of the VAT threshold being lowered in the UK as well. So obviously that forces people to have that need to report more frequently, more accurately. And I think that's useful because the learnings you've had in Scandinavia will undoubtedly transfer to the UK. And you mentioned that the hairdressers, barbers, beauticians. I think that's one of the segments that many people, along with tradesmen, that's one of the segments people think of when they think of sole traders and self-employed, right? So you've got thousands of let's say thousands of beauty salons and beauticians using Kletta. Did you have to go out and sort of get these guys set up in the salons? Were you looking, so you got great hair there, Matti? Do you spend a lot of time in beauty salons and having your nails done? How long did it take to get these guys set up? Because as you say, they're really used to promoting their business on things like Instagram. I think it's key. I know from friends of mine in that space, that space, personal trainer space, most of their work comes through Facebook, Instagram, all those kind of Snapchat now increasingly bizarre. I'm too old for that, but my daughters tell me that's absolutely key. Mm-hmm. So did you have to go out on site? Did you how long did it take to get someone who is quite creative really in their thinking to sit down with Kletta as an app and go, right, okay, here's how I'm going to keep my manage my accounts now? How long does it take to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it a little bit depends, but I mean, where we have been successful is that let's say where we have tried and where we have ended up being successful is basically to demystify the bookkeeping and accounting related aspects for these people, and especially for the young ones who are entering this business world. So point being is that it's not that difficult. It's just ensuring that you are recording your sales, i.e. income, and your expenses. And if you are driving with your car, having your vehicle there and the mileages or kilometers recorded correctly. And Kletta has been designed around those ones. And then what we ended up doing is that many of the beauty salon owners who might have quite a many individual sole traders working for them, they recognized the true value of Kletta, and then they started also promoting Kletta to the people who were working in the saloons. I mean, for the existing ones, and especially when the new joiners come and proposing that, hey, you would be better off by start with Kletta, so all your books will be, in good shape, and it's actually truly easy to start. So effectively 2 minutes to get started.
2 minutes. I think that's important because people don't. I go to have my haircut in a barber in my village at Dean, and he's a great guy. He's a bit of a character, and the number he knows what I do. He knows I'm in the tech space, and I get inundated with questions about payment solutions. So he always seems to have a different payment solution. He's got a guy that works exactly as you described. He kind of rents a chair from him. So and it's always about ease. It's two things: price. He's always moaning about people that are too expensive. He has people come into his store to try and sell him these payment things, and he said it's too complicated. It's got to be easy. I haven't got time to learn this. So I know from personal experience, from listening to not that it takes him very long to cut my head, but it's price and ease of use, and those two things are absolutely vital. And I think that will be the same whether it's a hairdresser, beautician, if you're looking at personal trainers, if people are mobile tradesmen. and these are the vast majority of people in this space. And I think this is something I've always kind of thought about in this space. The type of work I do, I'm often at a desk, so I've got access to my laptop, I've got access to screen. I can sit down, I can use software that requires me to have a screen. Right, there's some tasks that you need to sit there and have a screen done. With MTD, I think the biggest challenge is actually recording the data, and the easier you make it to record that data, and often it is, as you say, it's one of these, right? It's taking a photo of that receipt from when you buy a sandwich, or if you buy something for a project. I think that those tasks, the data collection, is definitely better done on a phone than it is trying to upload things to a screen. So firm believer in that. And also, for whatever reason, people seem to be even the most even the biggest tech Luddite can actually use a phone, and it's amazing how sophisticated people can be. Even if you're not particularly tech savvy, if you put it in the form of an app, they could definitely get it. So I think it's interesting for me. You saw a pain point, but actually is probably you had a very particular pain point. You're probably more in the kind of consulting world, but that pain point is the same regardless of the trade or the profession that you're following. It's about collecting data. It's about making it easy. It's about making it fairly efficient. It's also about making it cost effective, because you don't want to spend a fortune on some complicated bit of software. So I think it's interesting there. You've ticked a few boxes, right? You found a pain point. You've identified the customer base. You've gone out and you've spoken to, and obviously you've found a really nice niche in the kind of beauty industry, and I think that translates to any industry. So you can definitely see how how Kletta's come about and how you've grown it to thousands and thousands of users. So just to kind of change in tack a little bit now. So that's the sort of the business side of things, but we want to dig into a bit about the person, Matti, because obviously all of us are made up of the business side of things, the personal side of things. What do you do outside of Kletta? What are your hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, I like to do a lot of sports. That's one of the things that I like a lot. I work out multiple times a week. I go to jogging. As a Scandinavian guy, I like skiing, both downhill and sometimes cross-country skiing.
Oh, wow.
During the summertime, I'll go cycling quite often, and sometimes play tennis. So I would say that it's primarily around sports, which help me to basically recharge my brain and also the body, and then I have 3 kids, so they keep me quite busy as well, and so that's my life.
I think it's similar. I think I end up usually going to the gym while I'm waiting for one of my daughters to finish, unless I'm coaching. I coach their football team. But usually now my gym sessions are in a university in Cardiff, while one of them is training athletics, or in a gym just up the road from the athletics track in Cardiff where the other one's training. So my sporting career is either shouting at them from the side of the football pitch, or trying to tack in a 45-minute workout in between their sort of athletic sessions. So I feel that. So that is my relief. I'm not sure the coaching bit is much of a release, because I think I probably take that more seriously than work, to be honest. But definitely that I can identify with the health and fitness piece. On that, so we've kind of lifted Kletta, looked a bit into what makes you tick. Just before we sort of finish the podcast today, this is a question I ask anybody who's at the bottle to set up a business, because I think it takes a huge amount of courage to have an idea and follow through. I've always say I've worked with loads of people, and if you worked in startups like I have for many years, the one thing that's never in short supply are ideas. Ideas are great, execution's better, and I think that's the hard bit. So on that note, you've set up a successful software business. What one piece of advice would you give someone who's either looking to set up a software business, or has just set one up, or is in that really early stage?
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting question. I think as we speak, it never has been easier to set up relatively well-functioning software without being a kind of a hardcore software engineer. So all these vibe coding software tools enable you to create not only like a prototype, but actually relatively well-functioning software, especially if it's not super complicated. So what will end up being very important is to truly understand what is the the value proposition and the problem that you are solving. I.e., when people start using your software, how does it really create value? How does it differentiate from the incumbent providers or the existing ways of doing? So I would say that just being truly curious, trying to truly understand the known and to some extent unknown needs of the customers, and then just start doing it.
I think being curious is great advice in any walk of life anyway. I think that often what happens, and I've seen it in software, you come up, you see people who they may have experienced a pain point, great. We all, there's things that frustrate all of us in life, but if there's not a sizable problem or a sizable market, you're solving a problem that's not possible. And I think actually the likes of Lovable and Replete and all these things that have popped up kind of made it easier for people to bring these things to market and think, all right, I can solve this problem. It may be the problem isn't big enough to warrant someone paying money, which ultimately is what you have to do if you're particularly in a B2B software. I know there's other things that B2C sometimes you can monetize in other ways, but I think it's interesting that sizing the market and sizing the pain. As a sales guy at heart, the pain is always the thing we look at, right? Is there a pain? Yes. Are there enough people experiencing the pain to actually pay for the software? Again, that's the bit I think it often misses, because there's a pain, but if there are 3 people that actually feel this pain and they're not prepared to spend any money on it, don't waste time on building even a prototype, because it's not going to fly. So I think that's great advice, and I think being curious is always something that is useful. So I think that's, in terms of my questions, that's it for that part. If people want to reach out to you, Matti, and talk to you about Kletta, or just generally sort of introduce themselves to you, what's the best way of reaching you?
Yeah, I mean, people can relatively easily find me through LinkedIn, Matti Lannetta or Kletta. If you are interested in Kletta, if you are, for example, working at the accounting practice, go to our website, kletta.com, and you can find more information there. And I would highly encourage you to either book a demo meeting there or join one of our upcoming product-related webinars to truly see yourself how simple Kletta is. I mean, it's as we've discussed, it's so easy to set up your practice there. It's very straightforward process to invite the sole traders. It takes effectively 2 minutes to onboard as a sole trader, and then if nothing else, just snapping pictures of the receipts and you're off to go. And then finally, as a bookkeeper or accountant, you will end up having all the business records with the related receipts nicely organized within your admin portal, and there you can leverage the AI-driven bank reconciliation to have everything sorted out and ready for quarterly submission. So Kletta is HMRC recognized software. Actually, I mean, it's been so delightful to work with HMRC, given that when we were, presenting our solution, they said, okay, that's a smart way to organize things. I mean, the industry truly needs simple, intuitive, easy to use software. So, I mean, we are not only like HMRC recognized, we are also a little bit like HMRC preferred from that perspective.
Well, you can definitely tell you're Finnish there, because very few British people would be as complimentary of the tax authority in the UK as you there, Matti. But it's great that I think, to be fair, having spoken to a few of the guys there, they are looking to simplify it, and they realise that MTD is a big ask. So I think that's a great point, and they are quite collegiate. So I think that's nice. It's nice to see. Anyway, all that remains is for me to thank you, Matti. Thanks for all of that. Thanks for telling us about Kletta and telling us about the story, which is really interesting, and about the product, and also for all the advice you've given either potential or existing startup entrepreneurs. So thanks for joining us, and thanks everybody for watching. And our next podcast, I'm sure, will be around pretty soon. But Matti, great to see you again, and see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for everybody listening in.